Good evening,
Good
sir.
evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you doing?
Good. There was a bit of a trouble with my internet, so I had to switch to another one.
So we'll start, sir. I'll
Yeah.
do the introduction and then hand it over back to you for your opening remarks, which is
Sure.
20 minutes. Okay.
Sure.
Very good evening and warm welcome to this 171st WiseViews Leadership Conversation. And today we have a visionary founder with us. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Ajai Chowdhry sir. Good evening, sir, and welcome. Welcome to this conversation. Thank you for sparing this time with us. I'll quickly go to the business. I'll do an introduction. Let me share my screen. These are WiseViews Leadership Conversations, which we hold every Friday. We have completed 170. And today we are on the 171st. It's a great day because we have a big leader with us. And also today is Kartika Purnami and Guru Nanak's birthday. I think it's an auspicious day and a good day for all of us to learn from. We are going to talk about technology, entrepreneurship, and the future as seen by Dr. Ajai Chowdhry Saab. And after this intro, we will have the opening remarks from the leader for about 20 minutes. And after that, we'll have 40 minutes of Q&A, all in 1 hour. It is my privilege to introduce Dr. Ajai Chowdhry. He has co-founded HCL along with 5 others with a dream of using microprocessor and changing the world. I think it has been very nicely simplified in terms of what they set out to do. He spearheaded HCL's expansion into Singapore in 1980 and created a successful business spanning ASEAN, China, and Hong Kong. Today, HCL is valued at an impressive $50 billion US. In 1995, Dr. Ajai took over HCL Infosystems and was instrumental in turning it into a leader in hardware products, systems integration, and mobile telephony through the distribution of Nokia handsets. Under his leadership, over the next 15 years, it grew to become a 12,000 crore organization. He held various positions. Some of them are chairman of Mission Governing Board of the National Quantum Mission of India, a distinguished fellow of Niti Aayog, board member of the Population Foundation of India, and trustee of the Save Life Foundation. Dr. Ajai has played a leading role in the establishment of the electronics industry in India, serving on government committees since 1999. In 2009, he chaired a task force created by MeitY, which made groundbreaking recommendations regarding the country's electronics import bill, warning that it would soon surpass the bill that for imported oil. These recommendations formed the foundation of the electronics policy. In recognition of his efforts to build the IT and Electronics India, in 2011, he was conferred the prestigious Padma Bhushan, the third highest civilian honor in India, by the Honorable President of India. He is the recipient of many other awards, including Lifetime Achievement Award by Electronics Sector Skills Council of India in 2024, Electronics Man of the Year 2010, CNBC TV18's India Innovator of the Year Award 2010, and Cyber Media Business ICT Award 2013 for Lifetime Achievement in ICT. Wonderful, sir. And he is an institution builder. Dr. Ajai has played a crucial role in shaping centers of learning and creating spaces for intellectual growth and development. These include IIT Hyderabad and IIIT Naya Raipur, which he as chairperson helped set up and develop into the reputable institutions that they are today. As chairperson of NIFFT Ranchi, he was responsible for transforming it into National Institute of Advanced Manufacturing to serve the needs of Industry 4.0. Dr. Ajai has also served as chairperson of the Electronics Sector Skills Council of India. Since 2011, he has been deeply involved in nurturing, mentoring, and investing in startups and has personally invested in more than 50 of them. He is also on the investment committee of Electronics Development Fund and CanBank Venture Capital Fund. He is regarded as the father of Indian hardware. Dr. Ajai has been a relentless advocate of self-sufficiency in electronics. In keeping with this vision, he co-founded Epic Foundation in 2021, a not-for-profit, with the aim to make India a product nation in electronics. His best-selling memoir, Just Aspire, which is the foundation for our conversation today, it is on Notes on Technology, Entrepreneurship, and the Future, published by HarperCollins India. Dr. Ajai holds a bachelor's degree in Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering from Jabalpur Engineering College. He has attended the executive program at the School of Business Administration at University of Michigan. He has also been awarded honoris causa DSc by IIT Roorkee and IIIT Design and Manufacturing Jabalpur and University of Engineering and Management Kolkata. Several accolades and several accomplishments. Thank you very much, sir, for joining. I will also take one more moment to introduce my esteemed colleague, Dr. Prasad. He's the Senior Director at Academic Wing. He holds BTech from IIT Bombay and PGDM from IIM Kolkata. And he brings to the table a rich experience of 3 decades as an entrepreneur, as an industry professional, and as an academic now. Welcome, Dr. Prasad. And we are all set, sir, to listen to you. It's now time for your opening remarks. We are honored by your presence. Our senior colleague, Professor O.R.S. Rao, who was your colleague some time back, he is in a different commitment today. He could not join, but he might join in between and say hello to you. But he asked me to convey his regards to you. Thank you so much, sir. And I welcome to this conversation once again. Over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. What I'd like to do is talk to you today about what I have really written in my book on various issues like technology, entrepreneurship, and how I see the future of technology. So, by the way, the book has now become a bestseller, and the new version, which has come out in paperback, also has some additions to what I have actually written in my earlier book. Now, coming to the subject of today, let me start from the beginning. I was actually living in Jabalpur, and I did my initial schooling before Jabalpur in a small little town called Rewa. And I was a Hindi medium student. And when I came to Jabalpur, I had to perforce learn English, and my father put me through the paces. Within the next 4 months, I had to learn English, which I did. And I joined a Christian school called Christ Church Boys School. And after that, I did my engineering from Jabalpur Engineering College in electronics and telecommunication. This was the year 71. And in 71, as I was looking around, the jobs that were available at that time were very few and far in between. Most of my students, they all went and joined government jobs, and most of them used to join Department of Telecom because Jabalpur College was the oldest telecom college in the country. But I took a slightly different approach, sort of was influenced by my brother, who came from a huge marketing background in ITC. And he always kept telling me that if you want to lead a company, you need to be in the sales and marketing area. So that kind of influenced me to only apply for sales and marketing jobs. And it took me 6 months to get anywhere because those days the jobs were very few. But then suddenly it just so happens that in 1 week, I got 3 interview calls and I had to go to Delhi for all the 3 interviews. And I attended all the 3 interviews and got all the 3 jobs. So that meant that I had to take a decision which job to finally take up. And luckily for me, I took the right job, as I will tell you why. And I joined DCM Data Products, which was an electronics company. And since I had done my engineering in electronics, I felt that would be the right direction for me. But it was a sales job, very low paying those days, 600 rupees a month. And then I got posted to Mumbai and learned the paces of how to sell. My co-partner actually became a partner later. He was my boss then, and he taught me the ropes of sales, and I learned it the hard way, going to small SOM locations in Maharashtra and carrying my calculator on even bullock carts and going and doing demonstrations and talking to people to sell the calculator. But that hard work really finally paid off. 3 years of doing that, 6 of us left DCM to start HCL. And HCL was started on the basis of having a dream that we had. We had a dream that we must take the microprocessor and change the world. That was our dream. But a very tough dream to take up because those days of the license Raj. So if you wanted to design and make a computer in India, you had to have a license. And all we had was 1.86 lakhs, very little money. And when we went around checking with the government, we found that it was not really possible for us to get a license. But then, as luck would have it, we discovered that UP government was sitting with a license. We went and talked to them and managed to convince them to work together with us. And we created Hindustan Computers Limited. The first computer that we designed was microprocessor-based engineering scientific computers. It was a desktop. And as we were designing, we were very clear that we just did not have enough funds to last us till the product came out of R&D and into manufacturing. So we took some very audacious decisions. We went to IIM Calcutta and wanted to hire 5, 6 great brains out of there. So we made a presentation to the students in IIM Calcutta, and I just came back from there, as a matter of fact, yesterday. And when we finished the presentation, people all said, look, this looks great, very exciting, but why should we join a little company? And those days, there was nothing called startups. So startups were not famous. In any case, our answer to them was, look, we are not offering you a job. What we are offering you is an adventure. And as a result of that, 5 of them joined us. I'm in touch with all 5 of them even today. So that sort of created the beginnings of Hindustan Computers Limited. We then went to hire the top great salespeople in the country. We hired on the basis of working out what are their needs. So we figured out that the best way to do that was to use what is called the McClelland's theory of needs. And we did some tests with people, and we only hired those that had the highest need for achievement. There are 3 needs that are there: need for achievement, need for power, need for affiliation. And we picked up those people who had the best need for achievement. And then the challenge that we had, that our product was still in R&D, and we needed to create a cash stream. So we took a decision that we'll create a beautiful brochure. We will put out what the product will look like, and then start selling the product. So with that kind of audaciousness and gumption, HCL was formed. My colleague, my co-founder, Arjun Malhotra, said, I'll go and get the first deal. So he went to his alma mater, IIT Kharagpur. And after a month, he managed to get 1 order for a computer from IIT Kharagpur. And then all over the country, our salespeople just took that order and got other orders all over the country. I personally went to IIT Madras and managed to get orders for 6 computers from there, from different professors. Post that, we managed to deliver the product in the period that we had committed, which was around March end. Because if we had not delivered by March end, the financial year for the government would have expired, and all of those who had placed orders for us would have lost their money. So as a result of that, HCL started to grow. And from there onwards, we again used the microprocessor, better and better microprocessors, and kept designing products as we went along, because those days, no import of technology was allowed. Parallel to this, in 1980, I went to start our Far East business, and we created a manufacturing facility in Singapore to make computers. And that was the beginning of our, export, and the beginning of our entry into the global arena. That taught us a lot. We learned how to market and create businesses outside of the country. So in 10 years from starting, which is 1976, 1986, we became India's #1 computer company. Having achieved that, our ambitions were still quite high. And we kept growing, and we were base which we really had trouble keeping up with, because we had more business than what we could produce. So come 1989, 90, McKinsey entered India, and they came to us and said, we want you to be our first customer. So they wrote a proposal for us where they said, we will take you to the United States. You set up a factory there to make computers, and we will help you to position yourself correctly. We did that. We started our business in Silicon Valley. We set up a manufacturing plant. Can you imagine taking coal to Newcastle? But we had the gumption. We were young. We had no fear. So we did that, and we started out. We got a lot of business. But unfortunately, the McKinsey report did not tell us that one part of our product was not certified in the United States, which is the power supply. And as a result, all the work that we had done got lost. All the business that we had got could not be delivered. So that was a failure. Very early days of our life as a company, it was a failure. But what do startups do when you have failures? You actually pivot. And that's exactly what we did. We pivoted from hardware to software and started working on creating software business. We took our R&D engineers and placed them in the top R&D organizations of Hewlett Packard and all other companies. Because one great thing we had was our capability in Unix operating systems. So which resulted in us getting software business. And in the meantime, we kept growing in India. And by year 2000, we had actually grown exceedingly well. We had started to go into other countries in the world. And in year 2000, we went for a listing on the stock exchange, which was a very successful listing. Incidentally, when we got into starting our journey for listing, our bankers advised us that you don't have enough back orders. So we did something, again, extremely audacious. We created something called the Customer Stock Option Program. We took some of the stock of the founders, gave it to anybody who could give us a $75 million order. And within the next 8 to 12 months, we had got 8 orders worth $75 million, which then helped us to do our IPO brilliantly. We were oversubscribed 23 times, and it made history on National Stock Exchange. From then onwards, HCL has been growing. We have grown all over the world. We are in 70 odd countries, and we are definitely regarded as one of the top companies in the world. If you look at services, we have excelled. In products also, we have really done very, very well. We created 2-3 new businesses which are unique. And as a result of that, today we are the 3rd largest software company and the largest product company out of India. Our revenue in products is $1.4 billion. And we are 18th largest in the world as a product company. So that's been the journey of HCL. And when I was sitting down to write my book, I realized that 50% of my life was HCL. But there was a life before HCL, and there is a life post HCL. So when COVID happened, I was one day sitting in the evening with my grandson telling him stories as I wanted to put him to bed in Goa. He kept saying that, "You're telling me so many stories. Why don't you tell me something about your life?" So I started giving him a little bit of anecdotes about my life. And that's when I realized that, look, if I'm telling my whole story to my grandson, why can't I do that for the world? So I decided to write this book called Just Aspire. The word aspire and aspiration comes from my guru, Dr. C.K. Prahlad of Michigan University. And in Michigan, in the class, what he used to teach was something that I always kept in mind, which was A is greater than R. And what he said was that if you have the aspiration, resources will happen. And that's exactly what happened to HCL. We had aspiration. We had 1.86 lakhs. We didn't have a license, and we still succeeded in creating such a large global company. So whenever I meet startups and they say, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this, I always tell them, guys, have patience. If you have the aspiration, resources will happen. So when I was looking to title my book, I said aspiration or aspire must be in the title of the book. So I was trying to figure out with my publisher, what should be the name? And I said, look, I want aspire or aspiration in the name. So we were banding it around, and suddenly my editor said, why can't we have something like Just Do It? So we called it Just Aspire. So that's how we created this book. And I'm sure all of you who would like to read this book will find that it reads pretty much like fiction. It's very, very easy reading. But what you will find is that there's a lot of learning of mine which I have put into the book. So for example, there is a chapter on entrepreneurship. And this chapter really tells you the 101 of entrepreneurship. There's another chapter on salesmanship. And why have I paid so much attention to salesmanship? Because I strongly believe that if you have to be a leader of an organization, your sales capability has to be absolutely phenomenal. That is what is required. So whenever I meet startups and whenever I meet CEOs of startups, I say, hey, learn how to sell. A lot of them sort of believe that salesmanship is something that comes inherently. No. Salesmanship can be taught. And therefore, you can go to any management school or go online and learn about selling. And if you learn how to be a great salesman, you can definitely be a very successful business. So that's why I paid a lot of attention to salesmanship. I paid a lot of attention to entrepreneurship in my book. In addition to that, managing and getting the best out of your people is what it takes to build a company. So there is a chapter which I have written, which is called the people tree. And I describe some of the practices that I used in HCL. HCL was number one employer in our kind of business for close to 7 years. The reason why we were number one employers were the fact that we really did something unique with our sales, with our people within the organization. Number one, we created everybody to be an entrepreneur. We wanted people to learn how to take risks and do things differently. Number two, we also told them how important it is to have a lot of humility, but be able to sell products and support products brilliantly. So we did not just pay attention to sales, we paid a lot of attention to customer care, and we were again pretty much number one in customer care. So this is how companies are made. People make the companies, and if you make people, then they make the companies. And following that, after having had a long career in HCL, one day I decided that, look, I'm getting to be 60. I need to do something different. So I took a call to step down, bring in a new CEO, and then started to look at different areas that interested me. So one was entrepreneurship. And so I started, investing into startups. I mentored a lot of startups, and I continue to do so. I've sort of invested in around 70 odd startups by now. I joined the Indian Angel Network, and the government appointed me chairperson of IIT Hyderabad. I started Hyderabad IIT from scratch and created a brilliant institution, the only IIT in the country that has a minor in entrepreneurship, which is available to all students. So that is something that we did something differently. And inside IIT Hyderabad also, we created a strategy to make people have a complete worldview, so that people don't just study electronics and electrical and etc., etc. They also learn about other areas. I have a strong belief that you should not just be a nerd, as I call it. You should have depth of one area, but breadth in 5-6 areas. And that keeps you becoming a whole person. Then move on to what I've always followed. Where do we go from here? Where are we today? What is going to happen in the future? Last few years, all of you have seen the phenomenal growth of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is something I wrote about in my book, and I also said it needs to be handled very carefully. And we should have regulations around it so that we do not have the wrong people having AI in their hands. So that is something that I've always worried about. But the benefits of AI are enormous. What it is doing is that it is taking away the humdrum jobs from us and making us do high-end jobs. So that is what artificial intelligence is doing. But if we look at computing, there are many interesting things happening. And I'm fortunately part of that movement. I'm chairman today of the Quantum Mission. We are actually working in India to make a quantum computer. A quantum computer will be much, much faster than your classical computers. When it comes around, it's a long journey. We have to do a lot of research with materials, etc., and science. And once quantum computers become available globally, you will be able to do certain things like drug discovery in a flash. You would not take 2 years and 3 years. You would be able to do it in less than 6 to 12 months. Similarly for climate, similarly for other areas which you cannot do on classical computers. So I'm quite excited to be part of that. The other thing is that where is computing going? What will happen to computing? So I've followed a futurologist here, Ray Kurzweil, for many years. And Ray Kurzweil has predicted that by 1945, we will have singularity. What is singularity? Singularity is when computing and brain will join up, and we will have capabilities which never ever existed in human beings. But before that, the prediction is that we will pass the Turing test by 2029. And what is the Turing test? Turing test is when computing will overtake the brain. And it is named after the famous mathematician from UK called Alan Turing. So this is where the world is going. This is where the future of the world is. And I've sort of gone into a lot of details about this in my book. And I very strongly now believe that India as a country must move from just being a services-oriented country to being a product-oriented country with deep R&D, designing products and manufacturing them in this country. Today, we have a phenomenal opportunity for young people to create companies who make products, whether they are electronic products, whether they are drones, whether they are space tech. All these products startups must work on, because the market is going to be huge if you design and make in India. And Trump has done us a favor. Trump has announced that duties on Chinese products will be 60% and duties on Indian products will be 20%. So if you make products in India and export to the US, you'll have a 40% advantage, which we never ever had, because every time people used to say, China produces so much cheaper than us, how can we compete? The world is changing. There's great opportunities for young people out there. And I wish you all luck in making that happen. Thank you.
Great, sir. Great. Thank you very much for these opening remarks. These are brilliant. And if I can summarize these and quickly move into the Q&A, which is actually what people are waiting for. This is a lowdown on the scenario that you have worked on and the scenario that is going to unfold in future. In simple language, you have captured the fact that having built companies, having built institutions, the mantra that you have mentioned today is that if you want to have a successful organization, figuring out the sales capability is extremely important, both from professional as well as entrepreneurial angle. I think building that facet of sales capability will define our success, and it can be taught. It is not that people are born with the skills of sales. Second and very important thing is manage people. The art of managing people is what is actually redefining the success of the companies. You make people and those people will make companies, and that's the motto with which you have worked. And of course, when building institutions like one of the examples that you've given is IIT Hyderabad, where the focus has been completely different in terms of a well-rounded knowledge and well-rounded attitude, which is required for the budding engineers and leaders. I think and also you kind of briefly mentioned into the trends of technology, the future of technology. One is the AI, where regulations are needed, but that's the future. And quantum computing is the next big thing. And singularity, I think we will have more discussion on singularity as well, a little more to explain it to our people who are around the screen this evening. And startups should focus on designing and making products in India. So product focus. Making products in India is a very, very big ask. Entire country is looking for startups and companies to work on this. And the pride of India actually resides in our ability to actually design and build products in India. I think that's in summary what you have said. I think it sets a ground for a lot of questions, but I'll request you to give us a little more time. You are no small leader, sir. Therefore, small time is not okay. I'll request you to give us a little more time. I know you are hard stop that you mentioned some time back. We'll try and see how we can.
Yeah, I need to go off at 7 o'clock because I have people coming home.
We will try and see how best we can do that. I'll quickly request Professor Prasad. Professor Prasad studied, as I mentioned, from IIM Kolkata and also from IIT Bombay. I think he was also one of the persons who received offer from HCL. Is that correct, Professor Prasad? And you can take it over from here.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Yes, sir. IIT Bombay, I think I had applied for R&D job from the electronics, electrical engineering department, and I got that. And then later on in Calcutta, I had applied for the sales job, and I got that too. So I didn't join for a different reason. Thank you, sir. So
you regret it? Anyway, okay, go on.
Sir, the first query is, you're known as the father of Indian hardware. And you have done quite a bit of work before, after, in terms of this initiative. And now you got the government which is focusing on electronics, hardware. It's a big thing, you know, you see it as one of those. Ram Charan has been talking that about it as number 1 point for India's drivers. Now, if you look, can you give us a realistic outlook on India's opportunities in hardware over the next decade?
You see, if you look at the last 5 to 7 years, this government currently has paid a lot of attention to electronics and semiconductors. And all the policies like PLI and incentives for semiconductor manufacturing are all very well received and very, very successful. But we have missed out on one major area, which is that we are currently doing it as services, not as a product. So all the work that is going on is around electronic manufacturing services. So what do? We get a design from abroad, we get a kit from abroad, we assemble it in India and have very low value addition, 5 to 10% value addition. When Apple manufactures its phones here, we are really not doing any great shake value addition. Now, phase one of our manufacturing was to create scale, which we have done. Now the time for us has to come to start to add more value. The real value in a product sits with the brand and R&D. 60% of value addition is with the brand and R&D. Due to poor government policies of the past governments, the electronic industry, which was a glowing industry in India, including HCL, all the brands vanished. The reason why they vanished is there was no support from the government. Now, luckily, we have PLI, and we also now need to take the next step. We are going to have fabs in India, semiconductor plants coming up in the next 3 to 4 years. But the challenge that we face is that how do you fill up those fabs with orders and business? 70% of the capex of a fab is being put by taxpayers. So the business plan of the fab must happen. We must make money from putting this taxpayers' money here. So the suggestion that I have given to the government is do the front end very fast. Create and incentivize product design and chip design in India, make for India, design for India, and have higher value addition. And in addition, all the companies that design and make in India should be given preference by the government for buying electronics. And following that, these companies will then be able to feed the fab with orders. So this is the model that is totally incomplete at this moment. And this needs to be filled up. Incidentally, because of Trump coming into power, India has a phenomenal new opportunity. All electronic products from China will now draw 60% duty. Indian products will draw 20% duty. We will have a 40% price advantage. Whether we take the initiative as a country, as a government, to go after it in a quick way, or we just leave it again. China plus one, when it happened, Vietnam seized the opportunity. They moved very fast. We now need to learn to move much faster. If we want to be a developed nation, we cannot just move linearly. We have to now move exponentially.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for pointing out the direction in which the trends in electronics need to move. I have a supplementary question here. What do you think are the limitations that we currently have in order to do this?
The first limitation is our lack of speed. We must be much, much pacier. You look at the kind of decision-making that happens in China and Vietnam. Our decision-making has to be at a great pace. Second area, which I think is very critical, is that when you're doing electronics, your logistics capability has to be brilliant. The Gati Shakti project of the government today is giving us a lot of hope. But for electronics, movement of components in and products out has to be very, very fast. Okay? It cannot be at that sluggish pace that we have, where it takes us 4 days to clear from customs, 10 days to travel to the factory, 4 days to make it, and then another 10 days to get it out of the country if you want to export. All of this has to get down to 2 days and 3 days. So this logistics capability is something that we need to create. The third area of concern that I have is ease of doing business. In India, the ease of doing business is still a huge issue. We now need to make it easier for our startups and our companies to operate in an environment where it's easy to do business. So these are the three things that I feel are needed for us to be successful.
Excellent, sir. Very clear on where the limitations are and perhaps what has to be done in the direction that you have mentioned. I'll take it to another angle of the same question, sir. You have been an entrepreneur in a generation, and now you're seeing the trend of millennials, Generation Alpha, Gen X, the next generation
Yes.
for the future. How do you factor their values, behavior, and aspirations into the story of the growth of technology entrepreneurship for India?
So first thing that I would say is that start believing in what I said earlier. A is greater than R. If you have the aspirations, things will happen. Don't worry about resources. The second thing that I would like to tell the younger generation is that have a little more patience. Today, our young people are very impatient. They want to go to the next step much, much faster. Great. But then time has come for us to think that we now need to develop capabilities before we can move forward. Those capabilities are underdeveloped and then we want to move forward, it won't work. The third area that I constantly hear from people is this whole issue of work-life balance. I really don't know what this is all about. This work-life balance is a buzzword that needs to be removed from our dictionary. Reason for it is that if you're really doing work that you love, then where is the issue of work-life balance? If you don't love your work, don't do that work, get something else. But if you're not involved in doing what you're doing, 700% of the time, you cannot be successful. So when Narayan Murthy put out 70 hours a week, everybody complained, oh God, what is he talking about? But let me tell you, he was right. In Europe, what is the growth of the economy? 0 to 2%. In America, the growth of economy is 2 to 3%. In the Far East, it's growing at 3 to 4%. We are growing at 7%. But we are stuck in the middle income trap even now. Our revenue person is so low. We are sitting at $2,700. Thailand is above us. Korea is above us. China, of course, is above us. How do we change that? The way to change, to my mind, is to work harder and work smarter and do things and make products in India, design in India, put more money behind R&D. Our country is devoid of R&D. The private sector hardly spends any money in R&D. That needs to change. And youngsters should not forget that science and technology can change this country. That is what happened in the United States. If the Europeans are going to work 4.5 days a week, we work 7 days a week, who will overtake them? We, right? Not the Europeans. They will get left behind. So I think that's what I worry about when I see the Gen Zs of the world. A lot of them have come to me and discussed this, and my answer is exactly what I've given.
Fantastic, sir. I think you've hit the nail on the head. And this soft issue is going to be a big issue as we go ahead. And we need to do something about it as individuals and as institutions. Thank you, sir. I think we are at about 6:48. I'm handing it back to Professor Rao.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's a great conversation. I'll ask one question and I see if audience would like to ask you questions and they can raise their hand. Because of the paucity of time, we'll run it faster. One question is, what is your suggestion to the higher education institutions in this country to bridge that industry academia gap, in the sense that one is bridging the gap, other one is how they can actually further help the India's mission in electronics?
Well, actually, I wouldn't just restrict myself to electronics. I would say that India's journey towards as a product nation has to start and has to be successful for us to really make it in the world. We just can't depend on services alone. The challenge today in our curriculum is that not a single institute in this country teaches students how to make a product. I would be surprised if you can name one, right? And this is something that I have gone and discussed with the chairman of AICTE, and I've said the curriculum must be changed. We must now encourage more hands-on work on creating products in every engineering institute. The other thing that is thing to my mind is that a lot of times I notice that the academicians wait for industry to come to them. I think it should be the other way around. We should have a reach out to the industry. Industry must taste the knowledge of academicians and value that knowledge so that they can gain from working with academicians. The knowledge is deeply available with all our researchers and academic people, but that is not utilized by the industry. That is something that we need to bridge. The third thing that I feel, we should create centers of excellence around top institutions of the country. And these centers of excellence must be devoted towards product development, product design, product servicing, product manufacturing, which is not there today. We should encourage more and more startups to come around institutions, be mentored by professors who have great knowledge in technology, but also ensure that there is a business mentoring as well for them. It's not just technology mentoring, it should be business mentoring also. So I think all of this is required to make an environment which students will enjoy, which professors will enjoy, and professors will be able to see the results of having invested into startups and becoming literally founders along with startups. So I think that's the model. You look at the success of the Imperial College in UK, you look at the success of Cambridge, you look at the success of Stanford. It has all these institutions have, created businesses.
Amazing, amazing set of suggestions that you have given. But based on this, the supplementary question is that when people like you who are doyens of industry are mentoring and building institutions like IITs, especially in this case IIT Hyderabad and many other IITs where students come to you for mentoring, and people like you, your own colleagues who have been there and done that extremely successful, serve as idols for them. They get inspired by you and they do it. But if I look at the other side, the suggestions given for the Gen Next, especially the Gen Next startups, in terms of first developing the capability, having some patience, putting more money on R&D, not worrying about work-life balance, all these things seem to have been violated by the same very crop that we are mentoring. Where is the gap, sir?
Yeah, because the challenge is that all those who have done things that I feel we should be doing have been successful. That is the reason why 2 out of 10 startups become successful. The rest of them do not believe in the passion with which I believe companies should be created and run. They must have passion about their work. They must have passion. They should not worry about how many hours I'm spending in my office. Today, you don't need to work in an office. You can work from home also. What's the big deal? So if you worry about work-life balance, work from home. Doesn't matter. The challenge is that the mental makeup should be that I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it to create something, and I'm doing it for the country. If you think like that, then the rest just follows.
Fantastic, sir. Fantastic. I think that puts the entire clarity on what you're advising and what is actually the reality on ground. Sir, there is one question that has come from the audience, and it is interestingly featured here in terms of the wordplay. The question is, as I read, one should only just aspire or also more and more perspire and inspire many others?
You need to do all three. You see, all three are connected deeply. So if you aspire, you will perspire and you will inspire if you're successful.
Absolutely. You will perspire and you will inspire. It actually unfolds more like a design, although it is not one.
Yes, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Very interesting that you say that. Yeah.
Correct. Fantastic. There is another
As a matter of fact, somebody jokingly told me your next book will be Perspire. And only an ex-HCL guy could have told me this. He was my head of marketing of HCL, and he said, your next book has to be Perspire.
But I'm sure there are lots of learnings in that Perspire theme as well.
Yes.
So that's where execution comes in. And,
yes.
It's like spiritualism to actual leadership.
Absolutely
leadership.
right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
So I think we all should wait for it. And I'm sure your publishers are listening to this as well. But But incidentally, sir, we have picked up about 100 copies of your book when it was launched last year at Hyderabad. And we have distributed it to all our leaders across our campuses. And each of the campuses have got multiple volumes, multiple copies of your book
Sure.
in all the libraries. It's a great book. And ever
Yeah.
since I met you in Bangalore during that Business Lit Festival, I started reading more about this. And it's an amazing book for not just the youngsters, but also those veterans to actually go back and read the book.
Yeah,
Really,
I think it's in a manner I have sort of tried to capture what is entrepreneurship.
yeah.
And I think it's a book that will be of great value to management schools all over the country because a lot of times it's all about theory. This book is not about theory. This book is about practice. And therefore, practice is what makes you perfect.
Absolutely. Practice makes you perfect. And this is not theory. In as many words as we get into the pages of this book, it's a bulky book actually. One should have a lot of aspiration to read the book, including rest of the readers.
Yes.
But when you get into it, sir, I think it will help you continue with the book. And it's a good book.
Actually, when I was writing the book, one thing wasn't very clear in my mind. I love reading fiction. So when I was writing the book, the objective was to make it read like fiction. So that is very easy reading. It's very pacey. You'll never get bored reading this book. And you will find so many anecdotes will make you laugh.
Great. Yes, it is. Another question that has come up from the audience, and this probably last from my side, is what do you foresee in the upcoming days, growth or decline of agriculture?
I think we need to take a different approach to agriculture. Without agriculture, the country cannot survive. Because let's be very clear, I have gone through the worst of days of India when PL 480 was there, when we used to eat horrible wheat coming in, rejected wheat coming in from the United States. Okay, today we are feeding the rest of the world. We are feeding ourselves and we are feeding rest of the world. The Prime Minister's vision is to put Indian food on every table in the world. That is our opportunity. So we need to aspire to do that. For that, we need to move on from the nonsense of MSPs and all of this that we get stuck with. It's very political. It has no meaning anymore. What is the sense in producing the most expensive rice in the world when we can produce it much lower? Because we are unnecessarily increasing the price through MSPs, etc., etc. The second thing is we need to do follow-on products from agriculture. There's a huge opportunity in food processing. And there's so many mouths to feed all over the world that there is a great opportunity in agriculture. So I think we need to now go on from the green revolution to a technology revolution in scientific revolution in agriculture. I think that's absolutely essential for a large country like ours. We have all the capability. I always keep saying, what is so different about India from any others in the world is the Indian brain. We have a mind that's brilliant. We must use it to do everything that we do better and better.
Amazing, sir. Those are amazing words in the 171st WiseViews Leadership Conversation from Dr. Ajai Chowdhry. These are nuggets of wisdom that we have picked up. I'll just name one or two and then we wrap it up, sir. Thank you so much for this blockbuster session. I think it's been a huge advantage for us to listen to you and in the first place to request for a time from you in your busy schedule. But the nuggets are like this. We need to have a complete different approach for agriculture. From a green revolution, we need to go to a technology revolution based on science and technology. Other things are the decision making has to be much, much faster in order to see some credible change and competition. If you're competing against a behemoth like China, I think we have to completely pivot in terms of our processes, in terms of our decision making itself, and we need to be agile more than the word that we use more often in our operations. I think the agility, when you fight a monster, when you fight a behemoth, it has to be a completely different game-changing approach. Logistics capability has to be brilliant in order to face them. And a third and the most important thing that you mentioned is that ease of doing business beyond what we currently fathom. I think ease of doing business currently what we fathom is what we should look for. When we look for such a thing, then it is game-changing. For competing with normal countries or normal competitors, normal things are okay. But when you're competing with someone as big, It has to be very, very interestingly different. We cannot miss the bus, China +1, and now the opportunity of differential in the duties charged by the US. I think there we should actually take advantage, as you suggested, in simple language. But sir, we could have actually taken a little more time, but for the paucity that is here today, we will once again connect with you and see what opportunity lies ahead for us in probably bringing you to one of our campuses based on your schedule. We are present all over the country, as you know, but whatever is closest and whatever is convenient, we can do that. What I'm trying to say that give us one more opportunity to learn from you whenever that is. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad.
On behalf of everyone at ICFAI, I would like to thank you for this wonderful time and expertise. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a great leader and we have great learning from him. We will see you again on 22nd of November with another leader, and we hope to pack in more learnings. The learning shall continue. There is no end to it. And I think it should be there as a big habit for us to learn every week. And that's where WiseViews Leadership Conversations will march towards 172nd session. See you next week. Have a great weekend and good night.